There are two ways to determine the beginning of the first month of the year: the rabbinic way and the biblical way. One is declaring the first full moon that occurs after the equinox to be the Passover moon and working backwards from there. The other is the simpler, more biblical way of letting the first month start like all the other months do, by the sighting of the new crescent moon. Starting Nisan with the first new crescent after the equinox ensures it will always begin in spring like it's supposed to. This may seem like a trivial detail, but it makes a big difference when you're trying to determine where Daniel's prophecy comes out or make sense of the blood moon tetrads. You've got to have a calendar that starts in the right month. I will demonstrate just how big a difference that makes. First, we'll discuss the constraints that Daniel's prophecy places upon any candidate year. Nehemiah's decree was given in Nisan. The crucifixion occurred in Nisan. So any candidate decree year plus 69 weeks of years has to begin in Nisan and end in Nisan. The second constraint that the prophecy places upon us is that the receiving year has to have a Palm Sunday in it. And I assume that was on a weekend, so I include Saturday and Sunday in that. The lambs were selected on Nisan 10, and they were slaughtered on the evening of the 14th. And so if you set Friday as Nisan 14, well, that would mean Nisan 10 would be a Monday, and I don't think anybody wants that. So, you can't have a Friday crucifixion and a Sunday Nisan 10. It just won't work. And so a weekend Palm Sunday would be either a Wednesday or a Thursday crucifixion. So that's the criteria I used. The third constraint placed upon us is by Nehemiah himself, that he said that the decree occurred on the 20th year of Artaxerxes. There may be some reckoning issues. Did his first partial year count what we call non-accession reckoning? There's evidence in the Talmud that they did count the accession year of a king, so that his first full year was actually his second year. So there's some leeway there. So I limited the range to about 446 to 444 BC, just to give us a range. Okay, we're just going to let the numbers do their work, applying one criteria at a time. We're using the rabbinic calendar where the full moon after the equinox sets the middle of Nisan. These are candidate years where the decree is given in Nisan and 69 weeks of years later ends in Nisan. Now we're going to apply the second constraint to the receiving years and highlight those that have a Palm Sunday that occurs on the weekend. And then right on the right side of the screen are the results from the previous constraint, the ones that begin and end in Nisan, and you can see where the gray and the blue are. That would be where any matches were. If the gray runs into the blue, then we'd have a match, between a decree year ending in Nisan and a Palm Sunday on a weekend. As you can see, there are no candidate years to apply our third constraint to. This is what happens when you use the wrong criteria to start the month of Nisan. It affects the year that the decree is given, it affects the year that the prophecy ends on, and Daniel's prophecy can never come true using the current rabbinic criteria for the start of the year. Now we'll repeat our calculations using the biblical calendar, where the first of Nisan is actually the first crescent moon of the year and not the last. As you can see, the prophecy of Daniel jumps to life with many more candidate years beginning in Nisan and 69 weeks of years later ending in Nisan. Now we apply our second criteria to the biblical calendar. As you can see, even the receiving years have been affected, there being many more candidate years with a Palm Sunday on a weekend, and some of them are even matching up with some of the blue years that start and end in Nisan, something that never happened using the rabbinical calendar. It looks like we might actually get to apply our third criteria, and oh, sure enough, we have some candidate years, not as many as I thought we'd have. Now we'll apply the third criteria, and sure enough, yeah, 446 BC is a reasonable year. I guess that would mean Nehemiah was counting the accession year when he gave the 20th year of Artaxerxes. And the wonder of it all is that only a single year qualified out of that whole range of years where under the rabbinic calendar there was nothing. And so you tell me which is more biblical, the calendar where Daniel's prophecy never gets fulfilled, or the one that just miraculously stands out like this. I think we just found the year of the crucifixion. So in summary, using the rabbinic criteria of the modern Hebrew calendar, letting the Passover moon set the middle of Nisan, Daniel's prophecy never comes true. But if we use the biblical criteria of the historic Hebrew calendar, letting the 1st of Nisan actually be the first crescent of the year, then we get the actual year of the crucifixion from Daniel himself. And we were just letting the numbers do all the work. We had no idea what was going to come out. So yeah, this is all if the decree was given on Nisan 1 of 446 BC. It comes out to Nisan 5 of 31 AD, and you can see there's plenty of wiggle room for Artaxerxes' decree. It can be any time before Nisan 6 of that year, and it will be early enough for the triumphal entry on Nisan 10 of 31 AD, so I'd say Daniel hit it right on the spot. We just let the numbers speak for themselves, and 31 AD popped out. Now I want to learn as much about that year as I can, and oh, here's a bonus. The crucifixion would have been on a Wednesday, so Jesus' most amazing prophecy about himself, that he'd be in the grave for 3 days and nights, literally came true. There's no slick apologetics needed. A day is a day and a night is a night. Two of the most incredible prophecies of the Bible, and we can see that they've both been fulfilled, all because we're viewing it through the biblical calendar.